Nowadays with social media, it's so filtered that you really get this fantasy that motherhood could be. No use in fearing anything as far as pregnancy, birth, and recovery. Nailed like this to the table, completely drugged up, and I had tears coming down my eyes. My expectation was there's a chance that I won't have that immediate bond. It's something that I was not expecting. Start with birth. That was already something that surprised me immediately. The postpartum recovery was very easy for me, even though I had a C-section and technically a natural birth. I pushed for 3 hours and then I had a C-section right after. So that's kind of like my long story short. With that being said, because my birth was so traumatic, I thought for sure my recovery was going to be awful. And it absolutely was not. So I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have when they're pregnant. They fear, the first time going to the bathroom, or like all of the things that people tell you to fear. There is no use in fearing anything as far as pregnancy, birth, and recovery, because what will happen, and your story could be completely, entirely different than everyone else's. It will be unique to you. Just go into it with an open mind, have a birth plan, have an idea of how you would like for it to go, but also be open to things changing, because it's hard for the birth plan to be checked off the list entirely, and that's okay. I think the most important thing that I've learned the day that Kaiden was born is that the day was going to be special no matter what, because that was the day I met my son. And it was the most beautiful experience for me. I remember the doctor picking him up and showing him to me for the first time. And I was literally nailed like this to the table, completely drugged up. Completely. It had been several hours from pushing and all of the things. You can imagine how exhausted I was. And I had tears coming down my eyes because I never felt so much love in my heart as I did in that moment. Which brings me to another very surprising moment immediately, which is you can still have that moment even if you have a C-section. A lot of people try to play the natural birth, because if you have a natural birth, you are going to be able to feel this beautiful bond with your child, and you can't really have that if you have a medicated birth. Well, I had it, and it was a C-section. So that is not entirely true. I think that it is very individual to each and every person. Some people will feel it, some people won't feel it. Sometimes you have that bond immediately with your child, and sometimes it takes a little while for you to create the bond. It's totally okay. There's no right or wrong here. Going into it, my expectation was there's a chance that I won't have that immediate bond. There's a chance that that may happen, and that's okay. And I kept telling myself this because I knew that if I didn't, I would feel really disappointed, or, just guilty for not having that feeling. So I'm glad that I went into it kind of like with that understanding that it's normal, it's okay if I don't have that immediate connection. But then surprisingly, I did have that special bond with him right away. And it was just even more beautiful because it really came unexpected to me, especially after, ending up having a C-section that was not planned or scheduled. After giving birth, Obviously, we stayed in the hospital for a few days. When you have a C-section, you stay a little longer. So I think we stayed for like 3 days. My experience, like I said, with the recovery was not bad at all. Like within a week, I was walking. I was okay to exercise after 4 weeks. I lost probably 20 pounds after giving birth immediately. And then after a month, I kept losing more and more. But I am 11 months and a few days postpartum right now, and I'm still not back to my pre-pregnancy weight. It's something that I was not expecting because, again, with social media, you see all these moms and they just bounce back. And the bounce back culture is a very toxic culture, obviously, because you really think in your mind, if I'm active, if I'm eating healthy, if I had a healthy pregnancy, if I continue working out after giving birth, I will shed the weight quickly and I will get back to my old self. And honestly, that didn't happen for me. It did not happen for me. And again, this is very unique to each and every person. Like you may have that experience. I'm just sharing mine. I did not bounce back. I looked like I did. I went and bought jeans that were 2 sizes up so I could wear jeans again because I missed wearing jeans when I was pregnant. I didn't want to wear the maternity ones. I thought they were hideous personally. I had some pair of jeans that fit me like after a month from Abercrombie and Fitch, the ripped ones, and those are high waisted, and so that like lower belly fat that you normally have after giving birth didn't show. So I think that when you look at social media and you see this moms like showing off like their body after the baby, you may think, wow, like she looks incredible. And she probably does, but it doesn't mean that she's back, like she's at her pre-pregnancy weight. And you shouldn't have that expectation for yourself. If there's one thing I regret, and I hope I will learn my lesson if I am to have a second child, is to give myself more grace because I was so hard on myself to get back to my pre-pregnancy weight, to look like I did before. I was so mentally and physically exhausted from just giving myself such a hard time when no one in my life was putting any pressure on me. Like no one except me. I was my biggest critic. My message to you here is, if you are pregnant, give yourself time, give yourself grace, and don't have this like timeline in your head because of other people that you see online, because everyone gets back to themselves at different times, and that is totally okay. Some people will take 3 months, some people will take a year, some people will take 2 years. There is no right amount of time. It's your body healing from giving birth. And it's a beautiful thing that you did, and it's a miracle, and you should be so happy and so grateful. But with that being said, since I just read a book called Toxic Positivity, so I'm calling myself out here with the toxic positivity because I feel that, and the book actually talks about this, a lot of people tend to not validate someone's feelings for what they are. And I feel like this is where us women do that to each other. Like, oh, give yourself grace, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes we just want to feel heard and seen and validated. So I just want to take a minute to say to you, if you are currently having a hard time with your body, I hear you. Your feelings are valid. And I have been in your shoes and I have felt the same way. And it's much easier to sit where I'm sitting right now and tell you that you should give yourself grace than to actually put in the work and give ourselves grace. It's hard. It's really hard. When you give birth, people don't tell you that you're also giving birth to yourself, to a whole new you. You completely change the moment you become a mother. And it's so hard to, one, accept that, and two, to learn about this new person that you are becoming every single day. And so, yes, that is a very real, very hard part of motherhood. Going through those stages of who am I? I grieving the old you, grieving the old life that you had, while feeling guilty because you love this human being so freaking much. Why are you having these other feelings? Why are you missing your old life? Why aren't you just fully grateful for what is? So many people would love to be in your shoes. Trust me, I have thought about all of those things. I think it's completely normal to have these thoughts. I really do. And, again, I think it's just, one, important to talk about it, but make sure you choose your audience, because I also made that mistake. I didn't choose my audience. When venting about motherhood, about the hard days, I would choose the wrong people to vent to, that would come back to me and be like, Talita, you should be grateful. What do you mean? Like, you have a beautiful baby. You have so many people would be so grateful to be in your shoes. And it's like, all those things are true, but it doesn't take away from your current mental struggle. That's it. That's all I want to say. Okay. So, yes, all those things are true and real, but also what you're feeling right now is real, and it's totally okay to feel that way, because, again, your life has completely changed. And that is not easy to, one, get used to, two, accept, let go of what is no longer your life, and adjust, while also recovering from giving birth to a human being. Your body is probably still unrecognizable in the beginning, and you're sleep deprived. So it's okay. And again, like, it's just easier said than done. Not everyone has the capacity to understand and be compassionate without comparing, putting themselves entirely in your shoes, or just simply hearing you without judgment. Other biggest surprise for me was breastfeeding. I remember, like it was yesterday, a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, reaches out to me and she says, "Hey, how's it going? Are you breastfeeding or not?" And I told her, "Yeah, I'm breastfeeding." And she asked me, "How is that going?" And I swear, just reading her text message, I started bawling, crying. One, because someone cared to ask how breastfeeding is going. And I was hormonal, obviously, but it was just so nice to reach out for someone to reach out and ask me how that was going, because it wasn't going well. It wasn't going well. And everyone I talked to, I don't know. It was just hard, because there's not much that people can do to help you when you're not getting, like, when breastfeeding is not going well for you. You can see a specialist and see if they can help you. I think that would be like the biggest advice I'd give you. I researched how to latch properly, which is funny, because in the hospital I had two specialists there and they thought I was doing a good job. And I remember thinking, no, I am not. I don't think this is right. And when one of them was like, "You're doing great, honey. Don't worry, you'll be fine. And I am going to go now. Bye." And I remember, like, again, crying, because this person left me and now I am on my own to breastfeed this child, like, keep him alive by myself with my boobs. So That is a lot of pressure. And Kaiden, on his first visit to the pediatrician, which was 2 or 3 days after he was born, he lost 15% of his birth weight. And anything above 10%, they have the pediatricians normally suggest doing half bottle, half breastfeeding if you're breastfeeding, just because they really can't lose that much weight. So that was scary. So initially, I was doing both. I was breastfeeding, and then after breastfeeding, I'd offer the bottle and that whole thing. I didn't think it was going to be that hard. I thought I knew everything about breastfeeding. I read all the books, I took the class, I saw videos, multiple videos on how to breastfeed. So when I remember telling my mom, actually, I remember telling her, like, I'm not worried about it, mom. Like, I'll be fine. It will be easy. Nowadays we got all this technology. I can just look and see how it's done. It'll be fine. First time mom mistake, because man, did I pay for those words. It was truly one of the hardest things I have ever done. That was really shocking to me, especially because my mom's experience with breastfeeding was the total opposite. She said she actually donated milk to the breast milk to the hospital because she had so much. That was not my experience, which leads me to another keep in mind moment. Keep in mind that it's not an inherited thing, that just because your mom had this experience, it does not mean that you will also have that experience. Because going into it, I kind of like in the back of my head thought, okay, well, my mom had a really good experience with this too, so maybe I will. And that was not the case at all. So it really will be, again, very unique to you. And it's okay if you know you aren't able to produce enough, or if you are able to produce enough, that's awesome. If you want to breastfeed, if you don't want to breastfeed, listen, it is your life, your son or daughter, your story. You do what's best for you and your family. Fed is best. And that is all you need to remember out of breastfeeding. Fed is best. And honestly, your mental health is so freaking important. I feel like no one talks about this. The mother's mental health in the beginning is suffering. You are sleep deprived. You're getting used to a new body, a new life, a new human being that you're fully responsible for. And you're trying to breastfeed, and sometimes that doesn't work, and you're stressed out, and you're trying all these things. Do what's best for you, is all I'm going to say. If you are mentally well, you're going to be able to take better care of your baby. And that is the most important thing, is that you are able to give your 100% to that human being. And I feel like there's just so much pressure around breastfeeding. Try to block the noise on certain things, because people are going to try to give you a lot of opinions, based on their upbringing, based on their personal experience, based on what they read somewhere online. And it all comes from a good place, I'm sure, but it doesn't mean it's the best thing for you and your family. I need to drink some water because I haven't talked this much in a while. Okay. So, with that being said, I think I'm going to end this chat session here. If you guys want me to continue and do a part 2, definitely let me know. There's so much for me to talk about as far as my first year goes. I wanted to just see where the conversation went this time. I didn't make any notes. I didn't, everything was just from the heart. It turned out that I wanted to share with you guys what surprised me most about my first year as a mom. So there you go. I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share with a mom friend, and I will see you next time.